Everybody else is moving in slow motion. And I'm sitting there, I'm walking through this office thinking, I'm on the path. I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm winning. Entrepreneurs are not businessmen. Entrepreneurs have to develop into becoming businessmen, right? But they're not naturally good businessmen. We are working every day, super, super hard. And nobody said, hey, look, you're a heartless person. You're not a warm person. You're not a relatable person because you don't have a pet.
There's a difference between a dream chaser and a dream catcher. Hey, everybody, and welcome to the Dream Catchers podcast. I'm your host, Jerome. And this guest is really special to me. We did a cross-country road trip. He invited us into Humble Manor. We got to hang out and drive some supercars and visit probably the nicest Cars and Coffee I've ever been to. Met TJ almost a year ago, and he is the Millionaire Mentor. So TJ, thank you so much for joining us on the Dream Catchers podcast, man.
For sure, man. Good to see you. Ron, good to see you, man.
Yeah, bro. So I always like to start these shows out by saying you had an exit. I think you've had a few.
Yeah, I've had a couple. One significant, another wasn't so significant, and in that, what I mean by that is I used to have the last exit was a tech services company that I've owned for a long time. Prior to that, I had a design build company. So construction, commercial construction, essentially. But, really we did work in hospitals and mostly, right? So we would turn pediatric to podiatry, over the weekend, like over a few days, and do a lot of HIPAA compliant building. And so we would go into a hospital. GW Hospitals was our biggest client in Washington, D.C. That's the hospital that the president goes to. And so we did a lot of work there. And when things got really, really tough in the construction industry, I got out of it. And I got out of it because it was not a very strategic business. It was more tactical. I built that business because it was more opportunistic. Someone saw some of the work that I'd done in my personal property, and then they went to my office and said, "Man, you did all this work." I was like, "Well, I managed the work. I hired people, I managed the work." And as it turns out, that's what general contractors do. They're not swinging hammers per se. So with that, I did that for a number of years, and then I exited that because things got tough. And when I say things got tough, I already had other businesses. Things got tough in that business such that I didn't have the wherewithal to invest more deeply and to go further in that business, nor did I want to. And so because of that, it just made sense to exit. So that was a small exit where I got out and got a little bit of money, and was able to focus on sort of my primary business at the time. So that was some years ago. That was, quite a bit ago, at least 15 years ago, I think. And then with the last exit, I was a founder and CEO of a tech services company, and I built that over too much time, at least 25 years, and I built that over a long period of time. And I built it and didn't really have the concept of exiting, when I built the company. It's just like most entrepreneurs, I wanted to start. I wanted to build something. I wanted freedom. I wanted to be my own man. I wanted to, and I think entrepreneurs are creators. We're creators. So we take a blank sheet of paper and we create something. We solve a problem, right? And so that's our canvas. Our canvas is, the problem, and what we create is a solution for that problem. So that's our art, right? In terms of from an entrepreneur's perspective. And so that's what I was. I wanted to start and do something, and I did that and helped a lot of companies. I've walked personally in 250 of the Fortune 1000 companies over that 25-year period, as a consultant. Whether that was Pfizer or Coca-Cola or John Hancock or whatever, right? Just McDonald's corporate, a lot of corporations we walked into, Bank of America, to help. We had businesses in at least 12 different countries. We've done we did a lot of business, a lot of good business for a long period of time. And that was the rush. I'm doing this business. It wasn't even about how much money I was making, right? At that time, it was I'm doing the business, I'm winning, and I didn't have the mindset of protecting revenue or protecting money or building equity and all of that sort of stuff. I didn't think of it that way. I just thought of, hey, I'm going out, I'm winning. Here's a sales call, we're winning. We got that work done. We did it. It was awesome. And that's what we did for a very, very long time. And at some point, I realized, man, I need to change the way I was doing business. And we did. And we started to mature a little bit.
Wow. I mean, what you described sounds like it was a major enterprise. You didn't start there,
Yeah.
right? I mean,
No.
were you the son of an entrepreneur? Were you like second generation and just moving it forward? Like, talk to me for where you started, because this just sounds like it's second or third generation type business building to me.
Yeah, well, then that sounds awesome. I did a good job, but no, not at all, man. My mom was 14 years old when she got pregnant with me. My dad, I remember meeting him on the street in Columbia, South Carolina at some point. My mom said, "That's your dad." I was like, "Whoa, what a concept." That's my dad. And my dad was he was a boxer, and that was his passion. He wanted to fight all his life. And so he boxed and trained. And it's a funny thing, he was a kind guy. He's a kind man. Wasn't really an aggressive man, but he was a boxer, and that was his thing. But he worked at a chicken factory for a very, very long time. And then he worked as in a warehouse. But he had no concept of business. He never had a business, never started a business, neither did my mom. But what my mom did have was amazing work ethic, and she was amazingly competitive. So she worked really, really hard. And even though she didn't have any degrees or didn't finish high school, any of that stuff, she would always work and she worked in restaurants, and she would become like a general manager or district manager or some sort of in management in some way, just because of her pure work ethic and her, just being a good thinker. But I saw my mom work really, really hard. She never started any business at all. So that's where I come from, man. Pocomo, South Carolina, Casey, South Carolina, for right outside of Columbia. But it was an area that we call Pocomo, South Carolina.
Now, I was doing a little bit of research. I feel like you said you grew up on a dirt road. Is
No,
that real?
I didn't really grow up on a dirt road. I grew up in it's right outside of Columbia, South Carolina, which is Casey, West Columbia, and the little areas called Pocomo. But that was where you had way back in the day where everybody was, you have these little houses, basically you open the front door, you can see through the back, in terms of the houses. They weren't real big houses, but they were affordable houses that existed way back then. I remember my first memory of where I lived was in some sort of apartment buildings in West Columbia. And so it was sort of low income houses, right outside of the core urban areas. That's where I grew up.
All right. So I guess there's not the big city. You probably didn't know any owners of tech companies when you were growing up.
No, man. I didn't know any owners of tech companies at all. I think but I had an aunt, my aunt Sandra, that was a hustler, man. She was the entrepreneur of the family, right? She would clean office buildings for attorneys and things like that. So she would do that. she would always be figuring out a way to do some sort of side hustle and make money. So that was the closest thing that I saw to an entrepreneur. She would do things at garage sales and those sort of things, flea markets. So she would find things to sell at flea markets and garage sales. So that was my one of my heroes. My mom was a hero for me because of she was just my mom. And then we had all types of challenges growing up and sort of a complex relationship, but she was definitely a hero because of her work ethic and how much she wanted to win. And then my auntie was a hero because of how hard she hustled, and what she, how she would figure out how to make it work,
So that's wild. You just figured out that hard work translated into success. Like there is no substitute for that, I would guess.
Yeah, I think for me, it was I did not want to live. I didn't want to grow up in a type of I didn't want to continue to live in the environment that I was living in. There was a crack epidemic that we were dealing with in the country and in my neighborhood specifically. And my family was majorly impacted by it. So I wanted to live, I didn't want to live that way. I didn't want to see the things that I saw. I wanted to create a pathway for my kids that was going to be different than what I had. And so that was a huge motivator. And at the time I lived in a very racist, oppressive time in the South. And so because of that oppressive, racist time in the South, I used it to an advantage. And the advantage was I wanted to win. I wanted to beat everybody else. I wanted people to see me, right? And not just the color of my skin. And so because of that, my motivation was beating them, winning. And so, man, I was in school at times and I would have a jacket over my head, pretending to not listen, And I remember being in this class and the teacher would come around all the time trying to figure out how I would be acing tests. But with the jacket over my head, I would be listening to every word. And all I wanted to do is to show them that I was as good as them or was better than them. And that's what I did. I would just pretend to not pay attention. And while I was pretending to not pay attention, she would never bother me. But if little Johnny or Alex wasn't paying attention or acting up in school, be like, Johnny, pay attention. Alex, pay attention. Do this, do that. I'm going to tell your mother, I'm going to do this. With me, she didn't care. And so that was and I knew it. And so it motivated me, right? And so what I wanted to do was not only win, I wanted to embarrass her, right? So I would put the jacket over my head, pretend to not pay attention. And then when it was test time, I would ace the test. And the only time I got attention from her was during test time, where she would come around me to try to figure out how I was cheating. So my motivation at that time was winning and getting the attention of my mom. I wanted my mom to be proud of me, right? And I wanted everybody else to see that whatever their predictions about me or people that look like me was wrong. And that was a huge motivator for me for a long time.
So you're breaking stereotypes.
Yeah.
Creating new pathways.
Sure. Absolutely.
That's crazy. Now, I believe I've heard you tell a story about winning when you were building your company. But before we go there, I think you're willing to tell that story here. Before we go there, did you ever have a job or did you start with entrepreneurship as a kid?
No, bro, I had all types of jobs. So as a kid, I did do entrepreneurship because before you can get hired, the only way you can make money is cutting grass. In the South, we would sell fruit or pecans or something like that. You'd pick that stuff, you'd sell it, and so you'd hustle that stuff. I remember seeds. We used to sell seeds because I don't know whatever it was, but there was some like multi-level marketing company or something that would get us all to sell seeds. So we would sell that right door to door. So there was all types of things that I would do like that. There was a time that I had a newspaper route when we moved from South Carolina and moved to San Francisco. When I got there, I was able to get a newspaper route. So I did that. I remember painting lines in at college campus in Benedict College. So it would be those gold, lines for to outline the parking lot, right? And I would paint those lines, during the summer and things like that. So I've had a lot of different jobs, and my first job in a restaurant was I was taller and bigger for my age, so people would treat me a little older. So I started working in a Chinese restaurant. That was my first job in a restaurant. And I was underage working in it. I remember having a hard time, dumping the trash in the dumpster, right? So it'd be the big round gray trash cans. I would try to dump it. And, I would try to dump it over the top. And then the damn thing would fall down and all that gook would fall all over me, man. So I was like, and it was nasty. So it prevented me from eating Chinese food for years because of, the smells and, the trash and all that stuff. So I did that. And then I think at 14 and a half, I started working at a Italian restaurant called Tony's Pizza on Knox Abbott Drive in Casey, South Carolina. I worked there through high school. So, and I, played sports and all that stuff, but I always worked there. And yeah, so yeah, man. So I had a lot of jobs, yeah. And I went in the military after that. But yeah, I had a lot of jobs.
So military, and then when you got out of the military, is that when you started the company that you built over the course of 20, 25 years?
Yeah, so I was in the military, and when I was in the military, and as I was getting out, I found out while I was in the military that I could not be a general, right? Because, you go in the military and the highest ranking person in the military is a general. So I want to be a general, right? But I'm an enlisted guy, and I figured out there was no pathway to general, right? And becoming a general, you have to go in as an officer. You have to probably serve in war, which I served in Desert Storm and all that stuff. But you have to do that as an officer, and it's a political thing, and it's just there was no real pathway there. And I was like, let me say it differently. There was absolutely no pathway there. So when I realized that, I was like, man, I'm getting out of the military, and but I wanted to make what a general made. Right. So I remember trying to figure out, what does a general make? And so when I was getting out of the military, I went and started interviewing about a year and a half before I was due to get out. I enlisted for 6 years. And so when I went to get out and I went on job interviews, when they asked me what my salary requirement was, I would give them what a general made. And they would look at me like crazy, like, what are you talking about? I am an E3, E5 at the time, probably. And I'm trying to get out of the military, and I'm asking for a general's pay. And they would look at me, right? But it was no pressure. It was easy. I could ask for whatever I wanted. I couldn't take the job anyway, even if they gave it to me. I was in the military. So it was one of the most strategic things I've ever done at that time. So what would happen is they would tell me no, then I would ask them why. I would ask them what was required for me to make the kind of money I was asking for. And they would tell me. They would say, well, you can't do that because you don't have enough experience doing specifically this or that, right? And they would give me a roadmap, essentially, to making the kind of money I wanted. So I would go on a few interviews like that. I would build a roadmap for making the kind of money I wanted. And then I would go back home. I created this thing called Forward Thinking Resume, right? Because I took my resume, I added all the things that they were telling me to put on my resume to it, or that I needed on my resume. I would make those things in a different font. Now I had a forward-looking resume. I knew what I looked like on paper and what it would be required to make that kind of money. And then I would start knocking them off knocking them off. And that became my roadmap for my entire career as an employee and working for someone. And so that was my approach in the military to that was my approach to getting to where I wanted to get to. I allowed people to tell me where the gap was. I documented the gap, and then I put that in my cubicle on my wall, and all I did was try to knock those things off. But I get a feeling you were asking me about a job, right? If I ever had a job. And so, yeah, so the job in the military prepared me to do these other things for a lot of reasons that we won't go into. But it prepared me for a lot of reasons. I was going to school for computer science, studying that. And at the same time, when I was in the military, I was able to use some of those skills, even though that wasn't what we called my classification of work that I was supposed to be doing all the time. But I had an ambitious boss in the military that also had some authority to get some things done. I was on a base that had special projects, so I was able to create some things that worked for the military, even beyond the time I left. We were able to create a base supply program or a local purchase program for the military, and I was able to code all the things around it. And I normally wouldn't have been able to do that. So I was able to get a lot of experience that I wouldn't have otherwise been able to get because of me studying computer science, me having someone that knew this, what my skills were or what my ambition was and my work ethic. And they would use that to their advantage, right? Because it would make them look good, which was great because it gave me the work and ultimately the experience. But I left the military. I went to Prudential Home Mortgage, and I worked for Prudential Home Mortgage for a while. And that was a whole nother world, opened my mind completely. And I was able to leverage that job, right, into building a career and skills that served me to build my company. So essentially, I worked for Prudential Home Mortgage. I left Prudential Home Mortgage. I worked for a consulting company, what we call a Beltway Bandit or a sweatshop. Yeah, it's called a Beltway Bandit or a sweatshop, which is basically a government contractor that did business for a lot of the companies. Like we had a contract for Coast Guard and for the IRS and Bell South and which were all companies that I ended up being able to work with later once I built my company. And so when I left the sweatshop, INET is the name of the company, or was the name of the company, I think it was. But when I left that company is when I founded my company. So that's sort of the progression, is going through those jobs to starting and founding the company that I ended up being the CEO of for about 25 years.
Wow.
And, before selling it.
What caused you to leave being an employee behind?
Man, that's an interesting story. So I've always had this itch that I should do my own thing. It was an internal thing that was like, man, I should really be doing my own thing. I should be doing my own thing. And every year, like a lot of people celebrate at the end of the year, New Year's Eve, they celebrate. For me, I would be sad, right? I would kind of be sad and introspective, like, man, what did I accomplish this year? Did I accomplish enough? Am I where I'm supposed to be? And that sentiment and that internal sort of thing that was bothering me ended up being this great push for me to go off and build my company. I was feeling that way because I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. I wasn't where I was supposed to be, and I knew it, right? And even though others could look at me and see what I was doing and it looked like I was being successful, I knew I wasn't doing what I was supposed to do. And not to get weird on you, but I'm gonna tell you what happened, right? I worked at this sweatshop, INET, and when I worked there, the way I got the job is they called me when I got passed over on this promotion, which is an interesting story that I won't go into, but I got passed over on this promotion at Prudential Home Mortgage. So I called my mentor and I said, bro, here's what happened. He said, well, sounds like you're ready to leave. And I said, I think you're right. I am. And at that time, I drove 62 miles one way to work and 62 miles back through Washington, D.C., the DMV traffic. So it was horrible, but I was committed. And not only that, I started from 3 to 11, right? So I worked that third shift thing, and I would go in at 10 a.m. to 11, right? Every day. And from the 10 to 3, I would work in other departments, right? And I would work in these departments and I would learn whatever I need to learn. And once they were like starting to depend on me and starting to give me regular assignments, it meant that I had the job. I knew it. I got experience. So I would learn stuff back in the day, it was called token ring. I would learn stuff in system engineering. I would learn things in different parts of the business and tech. And once I learned it and I could start doing it, I would move on to another area. So I was way more qualified than I needed to be in my 3 to 11 job, which was essentially almost like a call center kind of job. So in the job, I was starting to innovate and do different things, right, with my computer science programming skills. And so I was doing these great things. And at the time, my mentor was a salesperson out of San Diego, Dan. And we would talk, and the way our friendship was he would be trying to, then he would call me and ask me to demonstrate tools or software or to explain something. And so that's what I would do. And when I told him about what was happening, he was saying, well, I guess it's time for you to leave. And I said, yep, it's time. And so at that time, my phone started ringing because he just put my name out there, right? And people started calling me. I never did a thing. So what happened was the people that I ended up going to work for, they called me and they asked me some questions. And they asked me these specific questions. I answered them, right? And thought nothing of it. Interviewed with some other people. These people called me back and said, hey, man, we want you to come work for us. And I was able to ask for the amount of money that the general made. I was able to now, just a few years out of the military, to ask for, the amount of money that I knew a general made. So I had gone from being in the military, getting out, to making as much as the highest paid person in the military. So I was like, this is pretty damn cool, right? So I did that. But when I went to work for this place, they had won this big job, a $20 million job, based on my answers. So they were asking me questions that they didn't know the answers to, but they were filling out a proposal. They had gotten a win, called me in. So now I got this job, and now I got to do all the stuff that I said, but nobody else knows this tool. So I was in this crazy work environment where I'm working really, really hard, right? I got a sleeping bag in my office. The environment was we would have hangmen on our doors, like the hangman thing on our door that indicated every time you did an all-nighter. You pulled an all-nighter. And that was our badge of honor for some of us guys that were like competing really hard to impress our companies and win and make more money for our companies. So that was the kind of work environment it was. And I had carte blanche to hire all these people. And I think I got out of the military 21, 22. So now I'm about 25 maybe, and I have, I'm making, decent money at the time. I have a cool car, I'm working my butt off. I'm able to hire anybody I want. I'm the man in this environment, right? And we're moving. And in this one day, I'm walking and I'm walking through my office. And as I'm walking through my office, things seem to, people say they hear from God or hear a voice or whatever. I had that moment. And I heard, why have I blessed you?
Ouch.
And I don't know if it was audible. I don't know if it was an internal voice. It was just, why have I blessed you? And the whole thing seemed like I'm walking and everything else is slow. Everybody else is moving in slow motion. And I'm sitting there, I'm walking through this office thinking, I'm on the path. I'm doing the things that I'm supposed to do. I'm winning. And I hear God ask me, why have I blessed you? Is it to have a helicopter pad on the West Wing? Because that was my goal. That's what I wanted. Is it to have these cars? Is it to have, and I had a clear vision for what I wanted in my life. And I heard that word, why have I blessed you? And in that moment, I was like shocked. And I think I went and walked around for 3 days trying to, just pensive and trying to understand that and trying to understand what had just happened. And so, after that, I knew I needed to do something bigger, more than what I was doing. And I'm going to disappoint you and tell you that, God didn't come back with the answer of, here's what it is. Right? That was for me to work through and figure out for years, and I'm still working towards that. But what I knew is I needed to do something bigger. I needed to create more success. I needed to touch more people. But after that time, I was like, I need to stop being afraid. I need to go build what I need to build. I need to be who I should be. And that's been the internal struggle forever, right? How do I be who I should be? How do I get over the fear? How do I take the right level of risk? How can I be bold enough, right? And so those have been the things that I've, struggled with then, I struggled with after that, and continue to struggle with. And I know that that's key to the level of success and the kind of life that I want to live, is tackling those challenges and doing those things. So after that, I was able to, I built my business, man. I was able to be bold enough to take that step, right? Yep, this is cool. I'm getting a lot of accolades. This is comfortable, but I need to go off and build something bigger. And that's what I did. I went off and started to build this tech services company. And yeah, it wasn't easy, right? I didn't have all the answers. There was no playbook. But yeah, that's how we got there.
Whoa. So there was one point where you told me a story about going out to dinner with some guys that you were working with.
Yeah.
And if you'd be willing to,
Yeah,
I'd
yeah,
love to
yeah,
share
yeah.
that story.
Yeah. So when I started my business, I'm out doing the work and all that sort of stuff. I'm grinding, hustling, doing that. Having a little bit of success. Nationwide Insurance was my first big customer, and I'm working. We're doing some stuff. I think we got another big insurance company we were doing work for, and this one company that was the biggest in my space at the time. They wanted to have dinner and wanted to talk to me, and they had always been saying, "Come work for me." Just come. You don't need to do this. Come work for me. And then they pushed my buttons. They pushed the buttons that was pushed back in high school was, you can't be successful doing this. You'll never be good at this thing. You should do something else. In high school, it was, go be a mechanic or go do some technical thing. Go do something that you can do with your hands as opposed to anything else. And there's nothing wrong with that. It was just not where my heart was. They were pushing me in that direction. And these guys was pushing me in the direction of come work for us. And there's nothing wrong with that. Just for me, that wasn't my destiny. And so they would always do that. But we had this dinner. And when we had this dinner, beautiful steakhouse, right? Dark, cool. We're chopping it up, yeah, all that stuff. And the guy says, "So TJ, man, we want you to come work for us. And will you do the same things that you're doing now, but you'll just work for us. You don't have to worry about the billing and hiring and all that stuff that you're worried about that, you're probably not good at and don't like and da da da. I'm like, okay. And so I said, no, that's okay. I'm gonna keep the path. I'm gonna build my company, and I want to build my company. That's what I'm supposed to do. Finally, I'm not burdened about not doing what I'm supposed to do. I finally feel like I'm living the life I'm supposed to live. Whether I fail or not, I'm doing what I'm supposed to do. And these guys was like, I said, no, and they said, I said, no, man, I'm good. They said, well, everybody has a price. And so at that moment, they said, hey, let me offer you something. So they wrote a number on a piece of paper, and they slid it over like you do in the movies and shit, right? So I was like, okay. I looked at it and said, bro, look, I'm not interested. I want to build my company, right? And so I slid it back to them. I don't even think I looked at it. He said, bro, well, you need to look at the number. They slid it back over, and I looked at it, and it was a lot, but I wasn't interested. So I sent it back over, and they said, bro, everybody has a price. And I said, I'm good. And at that time, remember, I sold my company over 25 years ago. They slid it back over, so I said, hell with it. Let me give them a number. So I put $1 million on it, right? So I put $1 million on it, and I said, $1 million, and I slid it back over to them. And they looked at it, and they started laughing. And I looked at them, and I was dead ass serious. I was like, I didn't smile a bit. And then they realized I was serious. And then in that moment, these are some guys that come from business. They're a Jewish company, Rosenblatt. I remember the name. I shouldn't say the name. Beep that part out. But But they looked at me there, and they hurriedly ended the dinner. They ended the dinner, and I sat there, and the only thing that I wanted to do was to beat them. That was my only goal in life, was to beat them. And so it was a huge motivator, also a little bit of a regret, because I worked really, really hard to beat them. And I remember us being in Vegas, and I had the big TVs, the big, what do you call those things?
Booth?
Huge TVs, and they were announcing the winner of the vendor of the year and that kind of thing. And I was speaking in a particular part of the event, and I'm up there, right? And so I'm standing beside this guy. And by this time, this guy's going through his midlife crisis. He has an earring in his ear. And he looks at me, he says, TJ, you did it, man. Congratulations. And when he said that.
Hey guys, as you might know, a very small percentage of the people who actually listen to this podcast are subscribers. So do us a favor, subscribe. In fact, we did some analytics, and we found out that only 25% of the people who listen are subscribers. And our goal is to get that to about 75% over the next 3 months. So do us a favor, hit the subscribe button so you get notified when our new episodes come. We plan to bring immense value to you guys going forward as we continue to improve the content that we create at Dreamcatcher. Your dreams should be real. Let's get back to the show.
It took all the air out of me.
Ouch.
Because all I was doing was chasing him and his business. And the problem is, his business was probably only a $25, $30 million business, right? I wish in retrospect that it was a $300 or $400 million business, because I would have chased that, right? So the moral of the story for me was, man, I'm chasing this guy, but my standards were too low. And it's the reason why, we get to wherever we get to, because it's all based on our perspective. my perspective at that time was he was the guy. He was winning. I wish he was much, much bigger. I ended up building a company much significantly bigger than his company and ended up selling that company. But he was my motivator for a long time. So you're seeing a theme here. You
Mhm.
know, my motivation has always been diverse. My motivation has always been adversity, right? It's always been me wanting to win, me wanting to beat someone, right? And even in winning or trying to win, that's what my mom always put in my head. You know, we go to a game. Mom would be like, wouldn't go to the football game or baseball game or whatever. She just asked me one question: Did you win, son? You know, did you win? And so that's been, how I was raised. That's been what's inside of me, and that's been there's the good and bad, right? The good is I'm going to chase it until I win. The bad side is if you're chasing some dream or some goal or whatever that's too small, you're playing yourself short. So
That's wild. All right, so you're standing beside the guy. He says you did it. What did that do to you?
I'm
Did
telling you,
you fall off a cliff? Like what?
I did actually, because what happened was that was my motivation. My motivation was, again, my motivation was I wanted to beat some people. I wanted to prove the people home wrong back in South Carolina. I had already done that. I wanted to make my mom proud, right? I just wanted her to win, and I wanted her to see me, winning and see that I had done that. I wanted to beat this guy, and and there was no way to know if I had done that until that moment where I'm thinking, man, this is pretty cool. But to have him say it and to know that, where I was relative to his company was like, wow, that's cool. But it took the wind out of me because I didn't have that carrot in front of me. I didn't have something that I was chasing. So I spiraled for few years, to be honest with you, in terms of motivation and direction and effort. So I was like, man, and it took a while to get back to a place where I saw something and put something back in front of me that was worthwhile chasing.
So this is the part where I think things get really interesting for the listeners. So you still own your company in this time where you're spiraling and you're looking for the new thing, or had you already sold it?
No, no, I still own my company at that time.
Okay. And so how'd you move from I've hit the peak, I've accomplished the goal. Basically, you conquered the villain, right? I think every hero needs a villain. So you've got the villain, you got the Joker tied up, he's neutralized. How did you figure out what the next mountain was? Because there's always another one that's bigger.
Yeah, I mean, it took a while. It took a while. There was no clear path to that, and I don't know if I can really articulate how I got to it. But I took a substantial amount of time um, off, if you will, relative to the level of intensity that I had. Um, I think I moved to the Dominican Republic, bought properties there. I bought invested in a hotel there, started, marketing, I started a restaurant. I mean, I got completely distracted doing, doing all types of other things, right? Because again, entrepreneurs are artists. They want to create something, right? Entrepreneurs are not businessmen, right?
Mm.
Entrepreneurs have to develop into becoming businessmen, right? But they're not naturally good businessmen. They're naturally good at having passion, being able to create something from nothing, being able to solve problems, being able to get other people to lead other people and get other people to follow them. And when I say lead other people, to get other people to follow them, they're not naturally good at management either. They're naturally good at leadership, and management is different. Business people are better at management. Business people are better at financial controls. Business people are better at creating, very specific financial objectives and keeping money and reserving money and that kind of stuff, right? Those aren't things that entrepreneurs are naturally good at. They're naturally good at solving a problem, right? And convincing people that the problem is solved and that you should follow them, So I think, I went on that sort of, I call it a hiatus of me not working where I invested in the hotel and started doing that and doing all the marketing stuff and whatnot. And that was me getting away from the primary thing where I should have been building that bigger and doing that more. But what I did, which was also accidental, was I ended up hiring someone to run the business, right? And put someone in as president. I put a CFO in place. I put a COO in place. So I put some things in place so I could go off and do these other things. But I don't know that I was like this, at that time that, I was just trying to figure out how to not work in the business as hard as I was working in the business. And that became a really cool thing because by doing that, the business was able to grow without me, being involved. So for the last 6-7 years of the business, for sure, I don't think I attended a Christmas party. I don't think I hired an individual that was not on overhead. So I would hire the executives or interview executives, but I wouldn't be involved in hiring anybody else, right? Didn't see anybody else. I didn't see any customers. I didn't, I went into my office one business day a week, if that, So I did that for a better part of at least 7 years. It could be up to about 10 years, but I did that for the latter part of the thing. And the business grew, which was good because I had, great partners and great people in the business. And that allowed that business to grow and scale a little bit. And then it also gave me the time to go off and be an entrepreneur, right? And then, so and that was starting stuff because at that time the business is running, it's making money. I'm getting paid a certain amount of money and all that stuff. I got a lot of people that are making, at least one other person that's making, 7 figures a year. And then I had a lot of people that were making very close to that. Not a lot of people, but several other people that was making close to that 7-figure number. We had about 150 people, the biggest size when I was there. It's probably is bigger now. I'm sure. I don't know, but I'm not involved in the company at all in any way, other than, I'm not involved in the company at all now. So yeah, man, I think that was the thing that happened was I spiraled a bit, but in that spiraling, I had to figure out how to free up my time and keep the company running. And in that, I hired the right people and learned a lot through that process because, I bumped my head a lot of times in terms of trying to hire the right person and missing, not being successful with some of the people that I hired and spending a lot of money. And then after that, me and my partner, JJ Smith, we started a business as well. And we built that business up during the time. So, I did the hotel stuff, but JJ had a vision for something and said, here's what we're going to do. And she said, here's what I need you to do. And here's how I need you to be a part of it. And so with that got me focused on stuff outside of that other stuff that weren't scalable, right? That stuff that I was doing with the hotel, with the rest, none of that stuff was scalable. It was, for me, fun. It was entrepreneurship. But the stuff that JJ and I started doing with our business focused on weight loss, focused on supplements, focused on helping people achieve some of the things that we've achieved. I've lost 72 pounds, and so in doing so, we started focusing on that business. And for the last at least 12 years, and that was overlap with, obviously other business. We started building this business and getting very strategic about it and very strategic about growing it. So, one of our big initiatives now is medically guided weight loss. So we are working every day, super, super hard to grow our supplement business. We have new supplements coming online to grow our medically guided weight loss part of our business and stand up a telehealth business. So that's what we work on all the time. So a lot of times you and I talk personally, you're like, what are you working on? And I'll kind of give you something generic, but that's what we're focused on day in and day out.
I love it. So what's really cool is you're checking all the boxes. So the first exit of a founder is leaving corporate. The next one is getting out of being chief everything officer. And you didn't tell the story, but you've told me stories where you were doing everything. You would hire people to do the thing that didn't know how to do the thing. You do it for them, get it done. And then eventually you were able to get out of that. Exit 3 is managing a manager. So you got people doing stuff and you talked about that as a journey. And then you talked about, hey, you had this thing going on in your personal life and you're just like, man, I'm going to go do some other stuff. And so you install the COO. Did you do a board at any point? Did you bring a board? Did you have a board established for your big tech company?
No, I considered doing a board, but I didn't want to hire someone that was responsible for telling me what to do. That didn't make sense to me. Well, I'm going to hire someone to tell me what to do in a business that I started and built, and put those sorts of controls. Another attribute of entrepreneurs, they don't really like to be controlled. And so with that, I didn't start a board in that way. Now that's also limited and smaller thinking. There's good reasons to do that because it's really easy for money to evaporate and go away. So I think when you're having success, right, when you're doing well, that's a great time to install a board because, it stands up parameters around you so that you don't do stupid things. And, and we can do stupid things very easily when you're making money, you're having success. And we all can fall into the trap of thinking it's always going to be this way. It's always going to be smooth, or it's always going to be easier. It's always going to be up and to the right. And that's definitely not the case. So having a board at those times is, I think, really helpful. Having a board when you're struggling, you're not making money and all that sort of stuff, I don't think makes sense. I think having a board, having an advisors is helpful because I think mentors are important. I think mentors save us so much time, so much money. They've been there, they've seen it. They can see your stuff. Let me plug in this computer. They can see your stuff in a way that you can't. So the perspective that they're able to bring you is super, super important. And people don't understand the value of mentor sometimes. And they get mentors and coaches mixed up. Coach, mentor, not the same.
Tell me more.
A coach can help you in a more granular way, help you get through a specific thing. I need a coach that's going to help me do ad buying. Right. And so that coach can work you through those things. Right. Let me show you how to do that. Right. They're teaching you how to do that. A mentor might be able to do some of that, but they can advise you and give you value in ways that can be broader at times. And so I think looking at a coach, I'd say kind of look at coaches as and regardless of what people call themselves, it's not about that. It's about what you're hiring them for and understanding why you're bringing this person on. I'm bringing this person on not as a mentor. I'm bringing this person on as a coach to help me learn how to do ad buying. I'm bringing this person on to help me get traffic. I'm bringing this person on to help me get conversion, right? And a lot of time those things can be tactical. Let me get these things done. mentors have a level of awareness and a nuance around things that you may not see, right? And a lot of times it's strategy. So when people are stuck, I was talking to someone the other day, and it's like, you're stuck, and the person's a mentor coach, and they have a coaching business. And I'm like, well, why are you stuck? The reason why you're stuck is you're not engaging your mentor at the right time, right? If you have the right mentor, they're going to help you strategically lay out a plan of what you should be doing next. What should be going on. And then you might need a coach to help you on that specific thing. You might need someone that you can hire to help you get that particular thing done. But if you're stuck, you probably don't have the right people around you to help you, because you should never just be stuck. Go out and reach out to somebody and say, here's what my ideas are. Here's what my plans are. How do I get there? Right. But that person was stuck, and what they were doing is trying to figure out, they had an idea that they wanted to go to market with. The idea was fairly vague. And so the issue was, why aren't you having success with that thing that you're trying to do? And so in that particular case, I had them, sort of critique themselves on it. So pretend you're not that person. Let's go through this. Why is this a challenge? And how can you make it better, right? So we started going through that and digging in, and it was very clear on why they were stuck. And now they're not stuck. They might not be stuck for a week or two, right? But if they get stuck again, and if they're humble enough to go and raise their hand and say, I got a problem, I'm stuck, I'm not making the kind of money I want, I'm not making the type of progress I want, right? It's probably because they don't know what they're doing, or their idea is not vetted out. The idea is not clear enough. They haven't associated it with what their sales process is. They haven't associated or created the right marketing messages around it. And they haven't, aligned all the things that they have to do to get to where they want to get to, right? But they shouldn't be stuck, and slow progress, if you're making slow progress, you have to figure out why you're making slow progress. Are you making slow progress because you're not executing fast enough? Or are you making slow progress because you don't really know what you're supposed to do or what the priorities are, right? You have to determine that. And if you are honest with yourself, then you can tap into the right resources so that you can move ahead.
That's phenomenal advice right there. And it goes to show why having people around you, making those investments to have the right people around you, can be game changing. Because everything isn't just brute force. There's some technique that is necessary. And if you don't have it,
there's technique and there's angle, there's nuance. Like, let's twist this just a little bit. And it's very different. With that person I was talking to, what she wanted to do was real and she was passionate about it, but the way she was presenting it wasn't going to land.
Mm-hmm.
It wasn't going to land with her, the market, her targeted audience, right? But what she was saying, and the reason why she was doing it, was what she was stuck on.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's great, but people aren't going to pay for that, right? So, but what would they pay for? What message would connect with them? How about if we frame it differently? Because it's not that what you're doing and what you're saying is wrong, but the way you're framing it doesn't land and it's not sellable, right? And you can go back to any of the major products or some of the products, whether it's a Chia Pet or whether it's the doll baby, right? What was the doll baby that you had to adopt?
Cabbage Patch.
Cabbage Patch doll. Think about that. It's a doll. So I can say all day long, well, no, I got this doll and it's really cool. And it's gonna pull at your heartstrings, right? Well, okay, it ain't landing. Right. But if you change the angle of that, well, no, this one comes with adoption papers. right? This one is, a little bit different. This is this doll, and I don't know the psychology of the Cabbage Patch doll, but the psychology of the Cabbage Patch doll is the reason why that was successful. It wasn't that the doll was any better or dramatically different. It
Yeah.
wasn't a technology advance. There was a message, a marketing message that was different that allowed it to advance and be what it was, right? Or the pet rock is another one.
That's one of the silliest things I've ever seen, man. Who wants a pet?
Yeah, but they were already selling rocks. They were already selling rocks. Rocks were for sale prior to the pet rock, but nobody called it a pet.
Mm-hmm.
And nobody said, hey, look, you're a heartless person. You're not a warm person. You're not a relatable person because you don't have a pet. But yeah, you're traveling, you're doing all these things. But wait a minute. Let me give you a pet rock. Right? You could talk to it. You could baby talk to it.
Man, that's selling snow to an Eskimo, man.
Right. So the nuance. So it's the marketing message. And think about all the water companies that exist.
Yeah.
And I talk about hint water all the time because if you came to me with this idea, hey, we're going to sell flavored water. Like, I'd be like, man, there's flavored water all over the place. Oh yeah, but we're going to call it hint. It just has a hint of flavor. Doesn't taste like these other things. It's just really, it's water, but it's going to allow you to drink and consume a lot more water. It's hint water. Be like, hey, the market's saturated. But they figured out an angle, a marketing message that works. So a lot of times we have to sort of reframe our ideas that we're taking to the market and to make it connect to the heartstrings,
Mm-hmm.
right? People want to buy. People are consumers. They want to buy, but you have to move it in their heart so that they go, oh yeah, make an emotional connection with this thing so that it makes sense to them. And people are doing it all the time. And that's where the brilliance is right now for us today in marketing and in this place where we have so much competition is how do we reframe it to make it make sense?
Make it so that
But anyway,
they feel stupid not doing
it. Yeah, sorry about that.
No, yeah, don't be sorry. This is good stuff. So I want to talk about your big exit for a couple of minutes.
Yep.
What was your first exposure to someone selling a business?
My first real exposure to someone selling a business at Prudential, something happened, but it wasn't real clear to me. Because there was this day where, everybody was excited and these certain people were gonna get some huge financial reward because I think Prudential home mortgage sold to Countrywide, but I was detached from it and it was abstract. I didn't know the details, but there was a friend of mine named Reggie, and Reggie was building a business and it built this business for a long time, and then he sold it. And he had this exit. And after he had to exit, we spent a little bit more time together. I remember going to his place in Miami, and it was like amazing. And, I remember, some of the initiatives and some of the things and spending time with him because he had built this business and never been married and all of that, and decided he wanted to go out and find a girlfriend. So he spent a couple years trying to find a wife. Right. So he spent 2 years trying to find a wife after his exit. And so I remember just being a part of that. And it was kind of funny and thinking, man, finding a wife is probably the easiest thing in the world to do. But that was his dilemma because he had spent all this time building his business. Then he had an exit. And then I remember him investing in all types of crazy things. Like I remember there was an artist that he invested in, but the artist that he invested in, the sister of the artist was a household name, right? And I'm like, well, wait a minute. Why are you investing in this lady if her sister's a household name? She should be famous by now, but I didn't understand all the things. But I remember watching him go through the paces that people that exit now I'm aware that people that exit go through. Like he was trying to figure out what am I going to do now, and let me invest in my passion, that kind of thing.
Okay, so you see Reggie go through the thing. Did you go to him to get guidance as you were going through the process of exiting yourself?
Absolutely, absolutely. I would ask him things. I mean, um, yeah, I would definitely ask him for advice or opinions or things he would do differently and things like that. And yeah, for sure.
What's something that went really well in the exit process?
For me,
Yeah. Because
uh,
it can be a bear. Like they deals fall apart all the time. Like you know.
yeah, and I mean, bro, look, the thing that I know we've been on for a while, so we have to get off. But I think for me, the exit was probably one of the most stressful things in my life.
100%.
The amount of time that I spent on it, the sort of it's going to happen, no, it's not going to happen things, uh, the deals that I walked away from, and in fact, the last, at the end, I walked away from the deal. I walked away from the table, and I remember leaving extremely upset, annoyed, thinking it was done, you know, and angry that I'm going to have to go back into this business and spend more time in it, and my plans were going to be different. I remember, hanging up the phone and saying, forget it, I'm walking away, and lawyers, everybody, and just like, got in an Uber and left. Went to the airport to go back to my a place. And when I did that, I upset. And I got to the airport and getting ready to get out the Uber, and I saw the Eagles flown, right? My lawyer, my banker actually called me and said, "You just got X in your account," right? I've walked away from the deal. I ain't signed anything, but they knew I was done. So they knew they couldn't push, anymore. And they sent the money without the deal being signed. So, so that's how that ended, man. And I was in a really good situation because I had built the weight loss and the supplement business, and we were already making, a couple $1 million a month at that time, and doing very well. And so I had something to fall back on. And the reason why I had something to fall back on is because me and my partner that built the JJ Smith that built the supplement business and the weight loss business, we were always trying to figure out how to build the next thing. So we had already started to build the next thing. We were concerned that how about if this thing goes away, because we could never sell it, and because I had been out of the business so long that it's sort of I lose control, that we had started building this other thing. And so I had comfort that, so I was in a position where I could walk away. It was still painful, but I could walk away. And so I did. And so when the money hit, man, it was tears. It was
Yeah.
tears. Yeah, it was tears. It was tears. It was tears because, the journey was so long that you start something, and to be able to exit, everybody at some point dreams of exiting, but it doesn't become a reality for most people. So to build a business and to be amongst those few that are able to build a business, have it have value, create the value where you can go off and go, wow, these people are sending me 8 figures and they got to keep paying me for it, until we get to whatever, was a major victory and a major win. And the culmination of a bunch of effort and time and energy and stress, you know, and a lot of relationships lost in that whole process, so it's tough,
Wow.
tough.
So how long did the feeling last, that gratitude and gratefulness?
Shit, I'm
Did
still
it
grateful. I'm
every time I look at
I'm
my account?
still grateful. I'm still grateful. I mean, I'm still grateful that and even though it was tough, even though, relationships was charred and all of that stuff, I'm grateful that we created a lot of millionaires, in that process. Um, Took care of a lot of people and their families, and started something that some businessmen were able to take and take it to another level. And when I say businessman versus entrepreneur, it's not completely 100% one or the other. Obviously, there's overlap, but the guys that took it are probably better businessmen, and I'm a better entrepreneur, right? And so I'm at the time anyway, but no, I'm still grateful that the thing that I started so many years ago, um, going knocking door to door to try to, get people to help me, for me to go in and configure their, write code or configure their database or whatever it was, ended up being what it is, and winning awards and all of that stuff. And so I'm still very, very grateful and very proud of having built that and built that with, some friends, and having an impact people's lives the way it's impacted people's lives.
Phenomenal. How'd you celebrate?
I have no idea. I don't even know how I celebrated. I don't remember. It was a few years ago. I don't remember. I think I got on that plane and I was introspective the whole time and just tears, tears. Um, I don't know. I don't remember. Honestly, I know that sounds crazy, but I don't remember. But again, I had we have this other business that we were, full fledged in. And by this time, we're in that anyway, right? Because we have this other business that we've been building. And, and so, I mean, I think we just, certainly, I'm sure, because JJ exited with me in that business because she helped build that business. Because she came in that business, years ago and was a partner in that business that really helped to grow that business. And so she was, we both exited that business at the same time. So I don't know what she and I did to celebrate, but we had also started building another business, so we were in that, we were in that.
I love it, man. Well, I know I'm over my time, so I guess we'll wrap it up here. The final question I want to ask is, who else should we have on the show, man? We love when we can get great founders on. Is there anybody in your network who would be a great guest for our listeners?
That's exited?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, I don't know. I'll have to get back to you on that one, man.
It's rare air.
Yeah,
right?
yeah. I have to get back to
Rare.
you on that one. I got a buddy named Angel. Yeah, he's exited. Yeah, you should probably interview Angel. You'd like Angel. He's a dope guy.
Is he a car guy?
Yeah, of course, he's a car guy. Yeah, he's a car guy and a good guy. I think he's a sommelier. He's
Somalia.
super smart guy. He's super smart guy, good guy. So yeah, you should interview him.
Love it. Love it. All right. To the listeners, you've talked to a man who came out of South Carolina, born to an unwed mother when she was in her teens. He went out, did a bunch of odd jobs, joined the military, said he wanted to be a general, wanted to make what a general made, figured out how to do that in his mid-20s. Goes into another company, pulls together a resume, a future-looking resume, checks all the boxes, works for another company, consulting, figures out the game, and then he starts out on his own. And
Yep.
at the end of the day, he's able to create a space where he made multiple millionaires and had an eight-figure asset himself. If you don't believe that your dreams can be real after listening to this episode, we're going to have to do a post check. TJ, thank you so much for being so generous with your time, brother. You truly are the epitome of a dream catcher.
I appreciate that, Jerome. And we'll talk to you soon, brother. Come back out to LA.
Oh, man. I can't wait to do that. And to the listeners, your dreams should be real. We'll talk soon.